and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. And as in opposition to the previous video, which was about the solar ascension light activation, which is a more masculine influence if we look at it from this archetypal perspective of divine feminine and masculine, and today's video will be more of the focus of the feminine and the moon and receptivity and what it is truly all about. So maybe perhaps you would consider this video to be more for women, but also if you're a man, because we're all influenced by these cycles of sun and the moon. We all have the sacred feminine and masculine within ourselves. Plus you also are, as a male, as a supporter of the feminine, you are the supporter of the sacred chalice of life, your feminine counterpart. So in partnership, this concerns all of us. Remember back the video when I shared with you my recent snake experience, which I saw 2 times. And the funny thing is, yesterday we were just leaving our sacred space after everything was created and the sun was going down. And suddenly I almost stepped on it. It was that tiny. I saw a baby snake. It was the same snake. It was probably its child. And it was like this big, and it was just weaving, and we were just observing it because it was so fragile and beautiful. It didn't have its instinct, you know, plugged in yet to do a little coiling ritual. And she was just there, just moving through, and went into her hole, and we observed her for a few seconds. She was just so beautiful, and it was an amazing spirit message that what I've been talking about in my Sacred Feminine, the uprising of the feminine video for the Mary's Ascension Day, that this was really true, coming into union and birthing our sacred child. So I saw the snake twice, the feminine and masculine counterparts met. And then I met a baby snake, which was their birthing. It was their beautiful sacred child. And it just brought tears of joy into my face and smiles, because I was just about to do this video today. And I want to start this video off with a very sacred sharing. That's my most intimate experience in life, which is also what comes a part of the sharing that I offer, is not just the knowledge, but also our experience of life. So remember a while back, I shared with you a very intense experience which I had with the menstrual cramps that made me, you know, fall actually. So I actually fainted, and I had this terrible pain which I never had before in my life. So after that experience and me sharing that with you, there was a lot coming through, and I was really embodying this feminine principle of life more deeply than ever before, which I've talked to you about, that this whole year started off the intense, not just awareness of the Divine Mother's presence and the sacred feminine principle of life, but also the embodiment of it. So I'm calling this transmission, the goddess embodies herself. So the embodiment of the goddess through all of us. So it's the sacred birthing process that took place in so many of us. So during that process, a lot came through. And when my next time for the period came, and actually this book really helped me as well, because through the blood mysteries that it explains here, and the preparation and the conscious movement into what is known as the menstrual cycle of the woman, and how it's attuned to the lunar cycles, which we know are 13, which basically is the sacred number of the Divine Mother and the synthesis of the goddess, which has been kind of left out in the whole 12 principle, which is the way everything is structured in our solar system, and the way we function and learn about ourselves with the 12 houses of the zodiac, the 12 planets, and so on and so forth, all these 12 archetypes. But there's also a 13th aspect, which is the summoning up, the harmony of the synthesis, which occurs through the embodiment of the feminine principle of life, which she does offer this coming back. It's like being absorbed through all these 12 archetypes back into itself. So I call this the Holy Spirit communion, and this frequency of our true attainment to become the chalice of life. So as like I said, next time for the cycle came in, I decided to go with it, or it was just naturally guided, so to go in it really consciously, and to consciously have that day as in feeling, you know, because for women, we don't always know when that time will come. We know like a little bit, but not always it's on the same time. So it's about moving so deeply into the body, that the body, because you're no longer just busy all the time and just running around, the woman creates the sacred space so that she can honor this time. So this time can truly just be for her. Because when I explored my past experiences that day, when I was actually moving into my cycle, it was always the most intense day physically. Because why? I'll explain this. When the woman enters her cycle, especially the first 2 days, she's really in her power, and there's a lot of intense energy being birthed through her. But if we're unconsciously stepping into that, we're going to create a lot of that energy intensity in a negative way, which means it will be a lot of lashing out of energy, sometimes a lot of that restriction coming through, and friction as well, as you're doing things unconsciously because you think you just need to do them, and think there's certain things you just simply need to do as a part of your life. Like I once had an experience when I had to go to the mechanics, and the thing is, at the end, it didn't really pay out because it turned out he can fix this or something like that, or it wasn't the right day, had to come later, and all I did was like, oh, if I'm not going to learn from this, I'm never going to learn, okay? But this is sometimes our learning curve as human beings, to understand how much we've been programmed into this. You know, you just do what you're supposed to do on that day, instead of you being the intentional creator of your reality and basically your universe, and moving into the sacredness. So after those cramps, it felt like the feminine really wants to release all these programs that have been stuck into this grid of how we're being pushed almost into life instead of just moving in flow with life itself. So I was basically shown, because other people shared with me, quite a few people shared that they had similar experiences in their own way. And a lot of people probably went into this release because the goddess principle through us, each and every one of us, is a part of that. Is a part of that essence of life, is a part of Holy Spirit, and what makes us whole and unified and beautifully one, interconnected with the web of life. So that's why people were having these experiences, because it felt like that final push to really dissolve these programs that, as a woman, you're like, your ancestors kind of passed them on to you. And even though you might have great power, you might be on another level, this mystic and priestess and this strong empowered feminine. Even when you're a man, you can have this strong empowered feminine aspect within you. And that's why you're seeing women as goddesses. You don't just see them as women, just the opposite gender. You see a woman in her ability to birth life forth. And you, as a conscious male, you're seeking that experience outside of you as in part of union, okay? Coming into union with that feminine outside of you in a sacred relationship. So what I was shown is that there was so much being written out of that program of pain and suffering during a cycle, that simply had to be eliminated completely. So for me, it was that intense because it wanted to move out of the experience once and for all. What happened during my next cycle, which was just last week, was like, I've never had such a more beautiful experience than this time. It was a lot of this chapter here that focuses on the blood mysteries and the teachings of the goddess, and how to actually in our human bodies embrace ourselves fully. Because trust me, you can't really be a co-creator, divine human being, as one with the co-creator beings and gods, or whatever you call it, or goddesses, if you don't fully move into your body. Because through your body, you move as one with all the elements. You're embracing life through the most sacred gift of life that you hold, which is your body, your current vehicle. It's your first house, it's your first home. And for women especially, because we have these cycles, we are not just doing that personally for ourselves, but I was shown, because we're going to read here a chapter about the moon and how the moon was influenced and what programs were written in the moon to make humans basically not tune into their divine nature. Okay, we all, you know, people have this great affection for the moon. Even the New Agers are like all these moons and rituals and all of that. Even the eclipses we're honoring. But what is really behind these things is also there needs to be a rewriting of that code that was imprinted in the false construct of the moon as a satellite to make us act a certain way, like it was written, the program that the woman has to suffer when she has birthing through her menstrual cycles, also birthing a physical child. So what we're doing now, a lot of us who are holding this program or the mission to, as you know, bring new codes to the planetary structure so that humanity can have a new layout, a new prospects, right? And new possibilities. We're recreating that, and that's why through our own bodies we sometimes had to experience this, how it is for most people, how it is to really feel entrapped in your body rather than to really love and accept your body. This is not just that kind of love you read about, okay, I'm supposed to love my body, you do a few affirmations and that's done. This has to do with moving and making love with every cell, being present, okay? Especially for women, when we have these cycles, we have to understand this is all that we will birth during the next season, during the next cycle. So our menstrual cycles are our own periods when we are actually, not just periods, okay, but periods when we will create something. It's a creation cycle is initiated through the menstrual bleeding, and we're not aware, but because we're always following the moons, the new moons, the full moons, okay, we have to get attuned to our own natural rhythms and cycles first before any external things we follow as deities, you know, or celestial objects, even what we consider to be the moon and how it influences. We have to really dig deep and research that. Okay, so when I went into my experience as of the late, it was almost like, instead of birthing these cramps, which were terrible, I was birthing orgasmic pleasure, and it was simply amazing because I didn't do anything. I just stayed present. I really stayed present, just giving so much love to my body, to the womb, which is creating this outpouring of a new crystal codes you're birthing through that, okay? Women, this is so important. And if we don't know how to, in a way, not isolate ourselves, but to create a sacred space for us at that time, and this is what I did exactly. I knew exactly in what space I want to be. I didn't let anything interrupt me or interfere with that process. I knew that is at that time of this most sacred importance. The next step is how to treat the menstrual blood and how to co-create with that in order to enhance something in our life. So when you have the experience, right, a part of it is birthing energetically. The second part is you're basically producing something that's physical. Blood has crystal codes inside of it, especially menstrual blood. So it has something that, you know, as they say here, you can use to fertilize things like your garden and so. But what is the first thing that you can fertilize is your own self, your own body. So I've heard before stories of women who are washing their hair or even, I don't know, parts of their body with their menstrual blood, or they're using it, they're mixing it with water, and there's similar things described here in this book. But I want to read you here how this also relates to sexuality, because it's also a sexual cycle. So if you're actually birthing that, your new creation, through pain, there's still belief that whatever we're bringing on earth through our bodies is difficult. So that's why we have these pains, okay? If you have a mild feeling of contraction when something in your body, as those muscles, right, they're working to get that blood out of the body, right? They're working on releasing it, and you will naturally feel these pulsations, but they're not meant to be so extra painful that we say women during their periods, we suffer. This was such an old program, and yes, a lot of it was imbued in the codes of the manipulation that occurred through the moon as a satellite. So let's read here, okay? I'm going to share this with you. So as women become aware of the blood mysteries, we've talked about that in the Divine Mother video on Mary's Ascension Day. So many will do outrageously creative things with their blood. They will learn that it is not a horrible, smelly thing, a bad thing, ugly thing, and that it has many mysteries. They will play creatively, respectfully, and without shame with this substance to see what they can do with it. And they say this is also the same for a masculine counterpart of our menstrual blood, which is sperm. So they're talking about ingesting these substances, like mixing them together, learning in the sacred ritual and partnership how to use this, how to really get intimate with that as we're exploring. It's like children, right? They're exploring, they're not doubting what they're going to do. They just say, ooh, let's do that, and then they giggle, they say, after what they created something. So again, we will state here that without the ingredient of love, you will never reach this exalted state of achievement. So the first state of really moving into our body through love and knowing this is something, this is our sacred space. We're going to produce everything now for this next month ahead, or this next cycle. I'm not going to say month, because again, this talks about time being fixed with the calendar, right? Calendar dates. Now, the calendar dates have nothing to do with time through cycles. So as women, we're tuning into the cycles first, and the masculine, which is in touch with us, they're also through us learning about their own cycles, so that they're actually getting involved as well, learning the feminine ways and principles of life. They already used to know that, but there was a lot of it, as you know, was distorted and corrupted, and it was seemed as perverted or as dirty and things like that. So people couldn't claim back their power of creation and their source abilities. So when you're in a state of love and trust, sharing, ingesting, and using these fluids opens the deepest gates of memory, bonding, and intimacy. You go beyond what is called the secret. Most people are incapable of sustaining this state for any length of time. They get close and may experience it, you know, even in sexual unions, but that's it. So, however, they're not able to carry the next phase of intimacy into completion, which goes beyond the physical. So you will not understand what it is to be gods or goddesses within your sexual experience, not completely, because you are humans and it is part of the way your bodies are designed. So it's written in our Seed of Life code. If you don't have any awareness about this, I truly recommend you to get my Tantrika, the meaning of the sacred orgasm mini audiobook. It is an amazing perspective, how we were through the sacred chalices of life, through the holy Elohim family of light. We were created and designed with the Seed of Life and the sacred pleasure and ecstasy. Of course, that was later rewritten, but the seed remained. So you can write programs around it, but the basic code remains. This is what's there. So when you work on unlocking that potential, activating your body's memory of that ecstasy and pleasure, instead of feeding the pain program, this pain programs, then you're really working with awareness. Yes, so we're going to now read something about the moon, and then we're going to continue, see what else comes through. So the moon, as you know, it is a satellite that was constructed. It was built and anchored outside Earth's atmosphere as a mediating and monitoring device, a supercomputer or eye in the sky. It affects all life forms on this planet beyond what you can currently grasp. In your history, there are references to 2 moons around Earth. You don't hear of this often, but there are those who know. Earth must be owned by those who dwell here. However, it is not. You have outside gods, creator energies, who prevent you as a species from having free reign with your Kundalini. The influence of the moon as a main satellite computer affects all of Earth. At this time, powerful cosmic rays are crossing space as photonic waves and being transduced through Uranus, Neptune, and other forces. This is creating an overloaded circuitry and around the control that has kept you from understanding that you as human beings must take stewardship of your planet. And it begins with taking stewardship and full ownership of our own bodies. Why are you locked into a prescribed formula of time that is irrelevant in every other place? What is the significance of 12 in this marking and dividing process? Who would you be without this? These are the questions we wish you to ponder. The answers have, of course, to do with control of your lifespan and Kundalini. You see, in the ideal, your lifespan would be much longer than it is, and your society would honor the process of gathering wisdom through experience. In the ideal, the Kundalini experience at 40, in a society structured and nurtured to bring it about, would create the maturation of the individual. But right now, you consider yourself to come into maturation at the age of 21. Please be aware that you experience numerous cycles of energy that come through the body to teach you new vistas of maturation. Awareness of this process is key to your development. It challenges you to continually take on more responsibility and not to feel burdened by it. There have been many battles over the moon. Parts of the moon are owned and parts are utilized. There is a plan to gradually insert different programs of influence on Earth when the moon becomes occupied by forces that would assist you in your growth, rather than limit you. The moon's programs have for eons been of great limitation towards human beings. The tales about the full moon and insanity, madness, and heightened bleeding are all quite true. There are repetitive cycles that the moon creates to which you respond. You know that television influences you to a great degree. The moon is the same way. You simply have not been able to tune into the moon's programs and learn how to turn them off. You cannot, well, not with that consciousness. Others must turn the moon off for you or reprogram the moon, which is what is taking place now. And as volunteer souls, through our own experience of life, when we get the life hacks and see these controlling programs, we write new programs, and we're doing it through our bodies. We're sending back the beam of that awareness through, let's say, with any celestial body, you're also beaming into the moon. This is how we do it. It all takes place in our bodies. So at this time, the moon is quite controlled. Some people are gravely affected by mania and craziness from the moon. Extraterrestrials and others have many bases on the moon, and those from Earth have little influence when it comes down to it. It is the extraterrestrials who really operate it all. Your technology, through rapidly advancing, though, cannot begin to compare with the biotechnology of sentient space travelers. You are newcomers to the game, and you miss a vital key for your senses and the essence of your physical world structure reality in a particular way. You constantly translate data, and like interpreting a dream, condense the experience into physical boundaries, where you find you can explain less and less. All is thought and mental architecture with the construction crew in many realities. So I would like to emphasize here how important it is to know that with everything each of us does through our own bodies, we are already reprogramming. Okay, we're reprogramming the DNA. The light filaments are assimilating together, and when they do so through the, let's say, how to say this, newly advanced template within our nervous system, it starts to beam out new codes of energy. So when you're consciously doing anything you're doing, not just, you know, the intention you have with your menstrual cycle, things like that, this is important because it directly relates to our creation cycles and abilities during. And when we started unconsciously, and this is just what happens, okay, every period I get these cramps, and we continuously like apply to that reality. We're like complying with it, okay? So what is taking place is we keep reaffirming that. And because I had such an intense experience, something within me went off. And it said, wait a minute, what's taking place here? No longer, no more. And then other people wrote to me about it, and someone recently said, well, I thought it was just something, you know, and then you mentioned about it, and I thought, wait a minute, why are these cramps so intensified? So the feminine now, especially through us who are women, because we hold the womb in the physical, we are really asked to take the next step into the leap, into this next state of our presence that's embodied, and allow the goddess to embody through us. And the goddess knows only, when truly is the goddess, she knows only pleasure and the deep connection with the intimacy with life, sensuality of life, not just with your intimate partner, but with life in general, the way you see life. You don't see life as traumatic and painful, and it delivers these things to you, and you just comply to that reality and just like affirmative, okay, all the time. It's becoming a sovereign through the body. So the goddess births a sovereign, not just awareness, but the sovereign body as well. So to become these new embodied sovereigns is really important, because not just for us, but those of you who are volunteer souls, we're sending out these codes. And especially during the eclipses, that's why this took place for me during the eclipses this summer, because the eclipses are gifts that, in a way, not just like every lunation, okay, and the programs that are basic programs of the old manipulated program written in the moon as a satellite that's meant to manipulate as well. So I know these beams of energy that tell people this is what you do, this is when you procreate, okay? This is what they also mention in the book, that people, because of this, they're just guided to procreate, and how the menstrual cycles are continuously, okay, how they're in continuation. They can procreate and have babies so often, so they're saying if you continue like this program will be replaced, because you can't overpopulate the earth in this degree and overpollute it and all of that, so this will be replaced. So with the eclipses, we're getting direct, like it's almost like an energy distortion is immediately recognized by our higher light intelligence, and it's immediately accessed, it's altered, and sometimes, yes, these experiences will happen. And people will say, well, bad, poor you, what's happening with you? Like, people are telling me, go to the doctor. They don't know what we're doing here. They're not necessarily volunteer souls who have complied to do this high work of basically writing new codes, new programs within the Earth's crystalline grid. And that deals with us also moving into the false grid. To do that doesn't mean, okay, we're just going to ignore what was happening, because there's still people who are so deeply endowed in that. They're so deeply, almost like some of them are like caught in this net, they can't get out. So this is what we do, and we do this out of love, but that love begins in our bodies. Okay, so we did the solar ascension light body activation as in a way to connect to the solar logos and for a real understanding what are our codes of life. And the summer is beautiful for that, because there's so much sunshine, especially here in the northern hemisphere. Not always here in the Alps, but I'm not going to complain either way. It wasn't that bad. The sun's shining now, so in our now, there's infinite now, we do have the sun. And then what we did also, it was just yesterday, we also then visited the Akashic realm of the earth, and to really align with the new earth in terms of embodiment, not just as a frequency. But as I was tuning into how this is meant to be shared in my work of progress, as you know, this entire summer, they didn't tell me, they never tell me exactly what's going to be a result of what I do. So last year, because I was so crazy busy writing the book, but it's not yet meant to come out, okay? It's not yet completed, and it's not yet, everything hasn't synthesized. But I had this in my mind, I have to finish the book, I have to finish this book. And I was so much into program that a lot of the summer and the beautiful activities just went by, it just flew by, and summer's here really short. So this year, they didn't tell me what they're preparing me for, you know, my family of light. And then yesterday, after the Mercury went direct again, something just unveiled, and I totally got it. I understood what all my stories were this summer. It was all about dimensional creation, becoming empowered, embodied sovereign, the way we create. So, okay, the last mastery course was finishing off with the cosmic union and ascension. This is very metaphysical, and yet it's embodied as well. But then what's the next step? And they kept telling me the next step is how you will create on earth. How will you create on this new earth, not just as a frequency, but what are little ways to approach creation, that it's not just something you create temporarily, okay, but you create it that is a lasting creation, because it's born dimensionally, which means all the layers within the dimensional fusion will be addressed there. So this was all my mastery during this summer season. I've been studying, I've been humbled and listening, and had these, my own experiences in life were showing me these half manifestations, and when the manifestation is genuine, and all of that. And then it made sense, and they told me I'm going to create the master class about the art of creation and tuning into the sovereign embodiment of the Elohim consciousness, because they are the creator gods and we are their descendants, the family of light. So we're stepping into, again, this role as a creator being, a divine human in form, and this is what they're preparing me for now. So they show me, as this solar activation was shared with all of you, then it will also be part of this earth Akashic. Then how do you visit that? Because all activations were revealed to me. It was beautiful. We did that yesterday. Wow, it was just amazing. And then everything about this process, and it's just emerging process. And then I said, well, why didn't you show me before you're training me for this? I didn't know. I thought I was just reading and studying like I always do, because that's me, the infinite eternal hermit. And they showed me, because if they did in the beginning, I'll take it too serious again, because this is sometimes what I do. And then I get so much in the working mode, I forget to play, and I forget to just move with the flow of life. And that's why they revealed it to me when I'm ready and when I actually finished this book. So this book was a synthesis point, because it's a lot about how to truly get embodied. Not everything that, that comes through my own guidance is there, but a lot is there to help people with the next process. So a lot of the things, let's say, they were written years back, but we're now actually at the level, we're not just there with awareness, but we're there with our bodies now. And this is what they shared with me. Well, when you will have your first orgasmic experience during your menstrual cycle as a woman, you are right on the verge of really embodying the sacred goddess. And this is what I experienced. I'm not going to go into the details, but it was just great. It was amazing. And for the first time in my life, I said, finally, I understand that this is our birthright. Not I understand, I always knew that. But my body now also understands and complies with that. That this is supposed to be orgasmic, and it's supposed to, all of our birth is supposed to be orgasmic, because at the higher levels of creation, it's all orgasmic. It's how we are. So we create a lot through the sexual experience of life, and without the sensual expression and tuning into and all of our senses and elements, we can't really start diving into those waters. We have so much that's still there, that's a seeming blockage, but it's actually just a non-awareness and a compliance to some program that's past its due date for a very long time already. So, sacred goddesses, beautiful chalices, the feminines and the masculine counterparts, I invite you to really take on this journey. Get creative, get knowledge about this, okay? Educate yourself. This book is a great way to start. I'm sure there's other books that probably specify especially on that, but your body has all the wisdom for you already. You don't need to read tons of books about that. Just, get to the basics and really move into your body. How can you really embody the goddess at this time? How can you replace this pain and, victimhood program? Like, when we're women, we do like this, we bleed like that, all this, it's old. Who tells you these things? We believe our body as a biology is created in a certain way, but that's the old two-stranded DNA human. It's basically a robot, okay? It complies with certain programs. It's a task operating machine, basically. Well, that's not a true sovereign human that's divine, that can follow up and align in parallel with great co-creator gods that have been bringing this world about, creating so many beautiful things here. So I am now in the process of creating this course. I will share more with you next month. Next month is going to be amazing in that regard. So take the time. We're at the end of the Leo season, which means the Virgo season begins, which is exactly that ripening of the goddess. The Virgo is the archetype of the goddess, of the harvesting, the creatrix. So embody this creatrix principle in your body first, because your body is your roots. It's your first domain. It's your house. And without the roots, we're always like falling out of ourselves and thinking what we need to do or where we need to be. But the bodies are calling us so strongly now, and we have the patience with them and allowing them to show us the right way. We're going to be so rewarded with these gifts and waves, undulating ecstatic energies that are just like this tantric energy that just flows. That's why I felt during my cycle. Okay, and yeah. More next time, and more if you're guided to read this book. Again, I'm not advertising it, but I'm just really loving it. So sharing always what I love, and love is what I am and who I am. So as always, with so much love, wisdom, and power, with all the beauty of the sacred feminine and all the forces of life that create alongside that principle and the birthing of everything into existence. Thank you for being here, for sharing with me, and for more you can visit my webpage, Serapina Light, and I'll see you there. Take care.